Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed a great lunch this afternoon and are ready for an afternoon of learning together. Right now, this session is Kipling Acres Cultural Change Approach to Family Engagement, introducing a caregiver support group. You're going to hear from Bambo Oluwadimu, who's the administrator at Kipling Acres, and Andrea Sangiorgio, who's the acting manager of resident services. Before I turn it over to them, I'll say that they're both fantastic leaders in the long-term care sector. Full disclosure, I've been on the City of Toronto's Senior Services and Long-Term Care Advisory Committee. This is my 6th year, I believe, 4th or 6th. I can't remember exactly what the terms are, but either way, time flies, and it's been a pleasure to learn more about the City of Toronto's approach to serving older adults, residents, and caregivers. And I'll now turn it over to Bambo and Adriana, who will tell you more about this amazing initiative at Kipling Acres. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Okay. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. We're going to be presenting on Kipling Acres Cultural Change Approach to Family Engagement. And specifically, we're going to be talking about our Caregiver Support Group. Next slide. So we're going to be your presenters for the next 1 hour. And I'm going to introduce myself before turning it over to Adriana to also introduce herself. So my name is Bambo Oluwadimu. I'm the administrator at Kipling Acres. Kipling Acres is one of the 10 long-term care homes directly operated by the City of Toronto. In terms of my role, I oversee the day-to-day operation of the home. And I've been here now for just a little bit over 3 years. In terms of my experience within the long-term care sector, I've been in the sector now for over 15 years. I was a frontline staff and I sort of worked my way up into senior management. I've had the privilege during my over 15 years within the long-term care sector to work in various opportunities, both frontline as well as management, as well as even policy opportunities. I have my Bachelor of Science in Nursing, so I have a nursing background, and I have my Master's in Health Services Administration. I do have a passion for ensuring high quality care. It is a real passion of mine, as well as improving residents' quality of life. So I'll now turn it over to Adriana to also introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adriana Sangiorgio, and I'm the acting manager of resident services here at Kipling Acres. I have a specialized honors Bachelor of Arts in kinesiology and a postgraduate certificate in therapeutic recreation. So I come from a rec background. I started at Kipling Acres as a recreation services assistant, and I've also held the volunteer coordinator role here. I've been in my current role for about 1.5 years now, and I oversee the resident services department, which encompasses a team of interdisciplinary allied health members. My team includes recreation services assistants, physiotherapists, physiotherapy assistants, occupational therapists, complementary care assistant, music therapist, art therapist, spiritual care coordinator, and counselors. So my team here at Kipling Acres supports the Family Council and also the Caregiver Support Group.
Thank you so much, Adriana. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about over the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about our home. We're so proud of it that any opportunity for us to go about it, we always take that opportunity. So we'll spend just a few minutes talking a little bit about the care and services that we provide. Then we're going to touch on CareTO, which is our current model of care. that we're trying to establish within the city, and the connection to the Caregiver Support Group. And then I'm going to turn it over to Adriana to talk about the Caregiver Support Group in terms of the design and implementation and what's happening so far. And then after that, we're going to spend maybe about 5 minutes or so just going over some of the other family engagement initiatives that we have at the home. And then we're going to leave the last probably about 10 minutes or so for question and answer period. So if you have any question during our conversation, we ask that you just jot them down because we're going to have time at the end of the presentation to go over them. Okay, so this is our beautiful home. If you've never visited us, this is sort of what we look like. We are located in North Toronto in the Etobicoke area, close to Rexdale, if you're familiar with the west end of the city of Toronto. The home was originally established in 1959. And in 2014, we embarked on the redevelopment journey. We did redevelop in 2 phases. So we had phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 was redeveloped in 2014, which would be the right side of the building up until the end of the brown brick there. And then from there onward to the left side is phase 2, which was redeveloped and finished in 2017. So we have a huge property, about 10 acres. So that allowed us to have this sort of state-of-the-art building still within the city of Toronto. We're also a municipal home. So of course, we're part of the city of Toronto. And specifically at Kipling Acres, we have 337 beds. Next slide. So this picture here shows the lobby, pretty much the main lobby to the home. As you can see, it's very bright with lots of modern sort of lighting. We have a total of 153 private beds and 49 semi-private beds and 135 basic beds. So of course, we have the 60% preferred as required by the legislation and the 40 basic beds. We have 3 memory units. So those are also called secure units. We have 3 of them. One of the unit has all private rooms and the other 2 units have a mixture of private, semi-private, and basic beds for a total of 96 beds. In addition to that, we also have 2 respite beds in the home. And these are beds that are made available to seniors in the community or any adults who qualifies for the respite program, just to provide respite to their caregivers in the community. So this is also a program that may be of interest to some of you out there. Also, we have 8 convalescent care beds at the home. And these are homes that are primarily used for rehabilitation. So usually when applicants go into hospital for surgery and they just need additional time to recuperate and they no longer require a hospital bed, so they will apply to our program and we'll take care of them for as long as they need to a maximum of 90 days before they're discharged back to the community. Again, another program that may be of interest to some of you out there. We have 1 hemodialysis room that is for residents who qualifies for the program to receive their hemodialysis treatment within the home. We also have an adult day program, and the adult day program is for adults and seniors in the community who are physically frail, and they may or may not have some mild cognitive impairment, or they might also be socially sort of isolated. So it's an opportunity to get them out to our program so they can socialize and have a routine in terms of where to go. In addition to that, we also have 2 tenants within our building. One is an on-site early learning childcare center, and that's also operated by the City of Toronto, and also a senior center called West Acres. And they cater to seniors living in the community who want to go to a senior center for socialization and activities. So they have to register through the City of Toronto website. We don't manage or operate that program. They're just one of our tenants within our building. So we're going to talk a little bit about CareTO. Like I said, CareTO is a made in Toronto model of care. You may have heard about it when we launched the program. It's developed specifically for the 10 long-term care homes that are directly operated by the city. It is based on evidence-informed practice. So we had some researcher who assisted us with putting the program together, as well as the evaluation. And the goal, of course, is to improve the experience of all those who live, who work, and who visit our homes. So some of the hallmarks of the program is staffing, of course, which is the first bullet point on the slide there. And of course, the goal is to have more staff. And we're so fortunate with the increase in staffing hours from the province. So we're definitely working towards 4 hours of direct care per resident per day. And also part of the CareTO model is also to make sure that staff are trained differently. So we have training programs that have been specifically designed for the CareTO. And some of the topics that are covered during the training is diversity, equity, inclusion, emotional literacy, teamwork, and relationship care. Like, what does that look like? Also, part of the focus is comfortable living environment. So we look at the space, we engage residents, we engage families, and the goal is to make sure that it reflects a home. We recently had a tour from one of our partners in the community, and I remember the comment on their way out was, yeah, this does feel like home. So that's always our goal, is, to reduce that institutional feeling, and so that people feel like, they're actually living in their home. It might include redesigning, redecorating, depending on the home and how much. Like, we're pretty new and modern, but when we do implement CareTO, there might still be some upgrades or enhancements that we would like to implement. Next one is around meaningful engagement and outdoor activities. So of course, attention is on relationships. It's on personal preferences. What does that mean? What type of activity do residents want to engage in, and making sure they're individualized. Flexible and pleasurable dining is a big part of it, and that's usually the most challenging one. So we're promoting like resident-centered menus. What does that look like? Which, as everyone can appreciate, can be very, very challenging. As much as we can to accommodate culturally diverse preferences in terms of pleasurable dining. And part of what the home who piloted this model is implemented is using a mobile food cart. So resident having the opportunity to maybe not have to be in the dining room at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, maybe they can sleep until 10 or 10:30. One of the key focus as well is resident staff relationships. What does that look like? Making sure that we're keeping the consistent assignment and making sure we're giving resident more autonomy. And of course, the last piece that I mentioned earlier is, we've engaged researchers from Wesley Institute in terms of helping us to conduct an independent evaluation and to continue to sort of reassess the model. Next slide. So these are the 4 pillars. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just wanted you guys to see what it looks like. Of course, it's equity driven. So we want to make sure that people are treated fairly within the home and according to their sort of individualized needs. Person-centered care, that we're providing person-centered care based on, residents' input, culture, and so on and so forth. Emotional focused care, understanding and managing emotions in order to improve relationships. And even with that, it's also including not just residents, but as well as families. And relationship-based care is focused on building and nurturing relationships. And that's amongst residents, that's families, as well as our staff. So you're probably wondering, okay, so why are they talking to us about their Care TO model? So this is a new model that we've piloted in one of our homes. Our goal is to implement to the remaining 9 homes in 2024. And the reason why this is relevant to this presentation is that it's also one way for us to build relationships with caregiver, that relationship-based care. And this is one way to foster that. Next slide. Okay, so we're gonna dive now deep into the Caregiver Support Group. And I'm gonna turn it over to Adriana to walk us through that.
Thank you, Bambo. So how did we get started with our Caregiver Support Group? The COVID-19 pandemic definitely put a focus on long-term care, not only for residents living in long-term care, but for their caregivers who were not able to come in during that time. Caregivers were isolated at home with reduced opportunities to access or visit their loved ones, which created a lot of emotions. Fear and isolation had families wanting information such as what's going on in the home, what home areas are on outbreak, how are the staffing levels, how is my family member doing, are they sitting alone in their room with nothing to do? Families wanted the opportunity to talk to staff and other families to get as many updates as possible. A need for communication, connection, and a sense of community was what our families wanted and needed. One way to foster that communication was family council. We moved to virtual meetings so families could attend from home, and naturally, the focus became pandemic-based, where caregivers had the opportunity to ask questions, and Bambo could discuss ministry updates, masking mandates, outbreak protocols, and visitor guidelines. It's hard to look back on the last 3 years and come up with benefits of the pandemic, but we consider the transition to virtual family council meetings to be a benefit because it increased our memberships significantly and improved communication between Kipling Acres and our families. With new members and a great communication system in place, our families began expressing the benefits of family council and wanted to extend the benefits beyond the group. They felt hearing about challenges and solutions within Kipling Acres gave them a better understanding and trust in the home. They said building connections with other family members gave them a sense of community, especially during the pandemic. Our family council suggested the home foster more opportunities for family members to connect with each other. Additionally, earlier this year, we began a quality improvement project on our admissions process. As part of our needs assessment for the quality improvement project, we hosted a group interview with our family council to find out more about their experience when they were being admitted to Kipling Acres. They expressed that the transition to long-term care is overwhelming. They anticipated adjustment and transition periods for their loved ones living in long-term care or moving to long-term care, but they didn't expect that they would need a transition period and that the transition would be so hard on themselves as caregivers. Again, they mentioned the benefit of being able to connect with one another through those opportunities. This is when we put our heads together to see if we could foster the opportunity of supporting our caregivers through the admission process and beyond, and create an opportunity for them to build connections with each other. This led us to begin planning and developing the Caregiver Support Group. Here's a diagram to show our journey about how we got to creating the Caregiver Support Group. We'll go into some more details on a couple of the points throughout the presentation, but this kind of shows our Coles Note version of our process. So you can see here the COVID-19 pandemic hit. That was the catalyst. That was our starting point. It was followed by family council recommendations that we overheard. And that's when we said, okay, let's work on this. How about a caregiver support group? That's when we began our search for a facilitator for the group. We then developed and implemented a needs assessment so we could find out more information on how we're going to implement if there's interest there and start our process going forward. After our needs assessment, we analyzed the data that we collected, determined the structure of our group, And then that's when we began communicating and advertising with fellow staff, caregivers, and our family council. And then after that, it was program implementation, and we held our first session. So now I'm sure everyone's waiting to hear the details about each section. So we'll continue going through each section in a bit more detail. When Bambo and I began planning the launch of our Caregiver Support Group, we began the search for our facilitator. Andrea Frey Bowen is a counselor at Kipling Acres. She is a registered social worker with over 20 years experience in the field and almost 7 years experience at Kipling Acres. She's very passionate about supporting seniors and their families through long-term care and is a big advocate for our residents and families. With her social work background and her previous experience in group counseling, she was a great fit for our initiative. Her role is to work alongside myself in planning topics, organizing guest speakers or attendees, collecting resources and materials for families, communicating with families, interdisciplinary staff, and community partners, and of course, facilitating the in-person sessions. She brings a great energy and lived-in experience as a caregiver herself, so does a wonderful job facilitating the group. Once we had our facilitator, we began planning a needs assessment. We thought a caregiver support group would be beneficial for our families as a forum to get to know each other, talk about their own personal challenges as caregivers, and give them access to staff within the home as special guests to the group. Although we had a vision, we wanted input from our families so we could ensure that the group met their needs and journey as a caregiver. We really wanted this group structure, topics, and guests to be self-led. We wanted our families to call the shots. Of course, we had a vision on what topics we think would be beneficial, but in order for families to be fully engaged and reap the most benefits, they need to have input. So to get a better understanding of what structure would work best for our families, we developed an online survey. Our online survey was live for the month of February of this year and included questions such as, would you be interested in a caregiver support group? Do you prefer virtual or in-person meetings? What day and time work best for you to be able to attend? How often would you like to meet? What topics are you interested in discussing or learning more about? The survey was designed to be quick, simple, and able to be completed by anybody and everyone. So even those who might be unsure of what a caregiver support group is, or unsure if they even wanted to participate. We wanted straightforward and raw data. If people weren't interested, we wanted to know. We advertised our survey via our weekly administrator email communication, which is distributed to all of our families who have consented to receive emails from us. Once the survey was completed, we collected results and reviewed trending themes to be used to help us organize the caregiver support group. Overall, we had a total of 50 respondents. Our general email distribution list varies as people are continuously being added or removed, but we typically have around 375 members on our communication email list, which means we had a return rate of about 13%. We saw a spike in completed surveys every Thursday, Friday, which meant that our email advertisements were working since our weekly communication goes out every Thursday morning. We were very happy with receiving 50 respondents, considering only our family council members were notified before launching the survey that we were going to complete this survey and this needs assessment. These numbers tell us that members who are not part of our family council took the time to respond and provide feedback, so it shows that there was interest there. As you can see from our pie graph here, out of the 50 respondents, 86% said a caregiver support group would be beneficial, and 14% said that they were unsure. Nobody said no. The bar graph on the slide shows the results of what support topics our families would be interested in learning more about. So individuals were able to select multiple topics if they wanted to. They did not have to pick just one. They could click any and all that spoke to them. We saw here that coping strategies and discussing burnout were our highest results. 79% of our respondents selected coping strategies as a topic they wanted to learn more about or they wanted to discuss. 60% of our respondents wanted opportunities to share their feelings and experiences. 60% wanted more information on the progression of disease. 47% wanted more information on palliative or end-of-life care. 44% wanted support related to grief. 21% of our respondents wanted information on power of attorney. And 19% chose other topics. Under the other topics, individuals were able to write anything that they felt they wanted to include that wasn't given to them on the list. We got feedback such as wanting to have an opportunity to connect with a doctor, more information about dementia, how to interact with individuals with dementia, such as programming, hiring private caregivers, or additional supports available for seniors, and feeding or general care of their loved one. We also asked in our needs assessment what day and time would work best to facilitate the meetings. Our needs assessment showed that it was an almost equal divide on the best time to host the caregiver support group. 44% voted that they prefer weekday sessions, 37% voted for weeknight sessions, and 30% voted for weekend sessions. So it was very close results. The equal divide really speaks to our demographic within the home. We have some caregivers who are spouses. They're retired, they usually visit on weekdays and usually stay to support meal times and programming throughout the day. Then we have our caregivers that are children or nieces or nephews who are caregiving for their parents or older relatives. They're usually part of the sandwich generation, so they're still working or caregiving for their own children, and evenings or weekends or even virtual work best with their work and life demands. We also considered virtual meetings since we've had so much success with our family council moving virtually. Our needs assessment also showed an almost equal divide on the preference for virtual meetings versus in-person meetups. We decided on in-person meetings as opposed to virtual for a couple of reasons. We really wanted to build trust and comfort between the members of our group. In-person works the best for building relationships and comfort because you have more access to nonverbal communication, like body language. We also know that as wonderful as technology is, some people are not comfortable or familiar with online meeting platforms, and technical issues can always arise. We also determined that for topics like coping strategies and burnout, they're very heavy topics. So we felt more comfortable being available in person to guide them through these topics. We wanted to include group style counseling components to our group and feel that in person facilitates that style best. After we reviewed all the data from our needs assessment, we were ready to create our action plan. Our first session would be a meet and greet. We decided to trial, after our meet and greet, we would trial all 3 days and times to see what worked best for our group before we settle in on one specific time and day. We chose to meet in our adult day program space, which is located just off our main lobby. It's a room that's available when programming is not happening. So usually evenings, weekends, or at other times throughout the day if they're using another space. And it's a room that accommodates a wide range of group sizes. It's large enough to be able to physically distance if needed, but not as large as our auditorium where it might feel too big or not as intimate enough for this type of group. And then going forward, we would see how the group progresses and reassess continually going forward, depending on the needs and the wants of the group. So now cue the launch of our group. Our first session was a meet and greet and took place on a weekday evening. We opened the session by greeting our caregivers, provided some coffee, tea, and refreshments, And then we had Priel, our complementary care assistant, facilitate a group breathing exercise with aromatherapy scents in the background to promote relaxation. Priel is one of our resident services staff at Kipling Acres. She provides one-to-one and group programming that focuses on relaxation techniques like touch therapy, aromatherapy, breathing exercises, light massage, and stretching. She is absolutely amazing at her job, and we're very lucky to have her here at Kipling Acres. The breathing exercises and aromatherapy was an opportunity for caregivers to settle their minds and focus on the group. For a lot of us, as soon as 2 o'clock hits, we're thinking, okay, we have to pick up the kids, we have to make dinner, we have to drive them to activities, we have to settle some bills tonight before doing bedtime routine. Or we're rushing to the long-term care home in time to feed dinner so that you can help with bedtime routine or watch the news together, spend some time together before bedtime. We as humans and caregivers have multiple roles. We may be parents, we may be daughters or sons, we may be managers or frontline staff, we may be housekeepers, and we may be all of these. So our busyness of the transition of chores or roles turns into a stressor. Not to mention, if you're driving or commuting with the amount of traffic and construction in Toronto, even just getting here is a stressor. We really wanted our caregivers to see this group as a calm, open, and safe space for them to fully engage with their own purpose or intention of being part of the group. So this short exercise was an opportunity for them to ground themselves. After the exercise, Bambo, myself, and Andrea introduced ourselves and a brief description on why we started the Caregiver Support Group, similar to what we're presenting on today. I then went over the survey results and how we anticipate the group to continue moving forward. It was important for us to share the results with the group so they had access to the data we had and reasoning for why we chose to focus on certain topics or the structure of the group that we had chosen. Andrea then facilitated the group to introduce themselves and talk a bit about why they chose to join the Caregiver Support Group. Our family spoke about who they were, who their family members were, their journey before Kipling Acres, their journey coming to Kipling Acres, and their journey since moving in here. Overall, we had a good turnout for our first event with about 6 caregivers attending. After our meet and greet in May, we completed 2 June sessions in order to keep the momentum going and build the momentum. The first June session was a weekend video viewing and discussion. We watched Still Alice, which many of you might have seen or know about. It's a movie depicting a woman and her family's journey being diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. We discussed how the movie made us feel, themes we can relate to, and our journey, which led us to long-term care. For this session, we only had about 2 caregivers attend, but it was a great conversation after the movie. It was really engaged. Our caregivers were very engaged, and we attributed the low attendance to it being on a weekend afternoon. So it was also June, which is the beginning of summer season, the beginning of cottage season. So we did get some feedback after that group that a weekend morning might work better than an afternoon session. For the second session in June, we had our medical director attend to discuss the progression of disease, palliative versus end-of-life care, how we support residents who are at the end of our life, our levels of intervention, and accepted any questions from the group. This was our most attended session. Our families were really engaged in the conversation and questions and really enjoyed having access to our medical director, Dr. Cronin. Some families even asked for session notes after so they can refer back to them at a later date or share them with family members. We also, at the second June session, had a representative from Home Instead come and discuss private care companions. They discussed their rates and what activities of daily living they support, like feeding and programming. We had around 10 caregivers participate in this session. For the first 3 sessions, we received feedback from those participating in the group that weekday evenings work best for their attendance and their ability to come. So the remainder of our sessions took place on Thursday evenings from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. For July, we had Joshua, one of our recreation services assistants, come and present on how caregivers can engage with loved ones when visiting. Josh talked about what programs work well for residents who might have cognitive decline or little verbal or observable responses. A lot of us are used to visiting our parents for a cup of coffee, talking about our day, our week, what's new and exciting with people we know. When dementia or other degenerative diseases come into play, those types of visits might be more challenging or might not be as engaging. Residents might not be able to respond. They might not know who you're talking about or even who you are. It can be frustrating and discouraging to visit in those scenarios because you may be grieving the visits you used to have. You may be grieving the loss of your parents' cognition, and you may feel uncomfortable because you don't know how to react or respond. Joshua talked about utilizing Montessori-based programs like coloring, sorting, touch-based programs, utilizing music, aromatherapy, or taking them outside for walks. He talked about positive signs that you can see as proof of an engaging visit, such as them tapping their feet to music, a calmer affect, slowness in breathing, petting a stuffed animal, or something as simple as them looking at you. These signs are nonverbal ways that our residents show they are listening, that they're participating, and they're engaged. In the July session, we also had Just Like Family Agency come in, and they discussed their role supporting residents in long-term care, along with their fees and options for caregivers to look into to supplement their regular visits. In August, our membership was pretty consistent, and we felt as though our group built a really good level of comfort and trust amongst each other. So Andrea facilitated a more intimate discussion. We had questions that triggered our caregivers to respond about their individual personal experiences, questions related to their fears, their stressors, how they feel when visiting, how they felt during diagnosis, and how they feel now that they're adjusting to long-term care. Talking about their personal challenges with each other was very cathartic. We had about 7 families attend this session, and it went longer than the 1-hour time slot. Our caregivers were very engaged, so it was amazing. In October, we planned a group dinner, so we kept it very casual, ordered some pizza, and we had that as just a nice family caregiver support gathering. Very low key, people could talk about whatever they wanted. Just an open session for them to relax and enjoy. That was also the session where we completed our evaluation. Unfortunately, it was very low attended. We only had 2 caregivers come out. We think that it's because it was the week of Thanksgiving. So maybe that was poor planning on our part. As we know, with family gatherings around that time, it usually gets busy. And then for this month, November, we started entering our season when time changes, it gets dark earlier, the weather's getting colder, and holiday planning begins. So we anticipated a low turnout. So for us, we planned more of a drop-in session and created something that could be emailed out to caregivers who weren't able to attend. So we put together a package of activities for caregivers to complete on their own time as the holiday season approached. It included activities like Google searching a guided meditation, go for a walk, go for a coffee with a friend, take time aside for yourself, complete a jigsaw puzzle, and some journaling activities. It was created to be very flexible and user-specific, so caregivers could pick and choose which activities they were interested in, and the focus was just for them to take time for themselves. It was an opportunity and a reminder for them to stop, take 5 minutes if that's what they had, and do something that they wanted to do. Our main form of promotion, so now some challenges that we've been having. So our main form of promotion is through our weekly family communication. We send out scheduled events and reminders leading up to the dates. This gives families the opportunity to see upcoming topics and if they're interested in that topic, and they can join at any time. The group is always open to new members. We also encourage families to promote the group by word of mouth. We have had family members bring their family members from home areas. So through relationships they've built on the units, families will let other families know, hey, I've been attending this group. You might find it helpful too. Why don't we go together? So we actually have a group of about 2 or 3 caregivers that coordinate and attend together. We use promotional flyers in the elevators and in common spaces. And our counselors are great at promoting to new families, new admissions, and to our family council that we're always encouraging new members to attend. Here are some challenges. So with any group or initiative, there are always challenges. We're still struggling with finding a day and time that works for everybody. We do find that half the group really enjoys weekdays during the day and the other half enjoys evenings. With the time change and darkness and winter weather coming, we're looking at hosting a virtual session in the new year. We're hoping that the virtual session that we get a lot of participants, like we see the same trend as with our family council, where we have a lot of people attending. Some drawbacks with virtual meetings is that it can be challenging to engage a virtual audience a bit more. But we're hoping that our core members of our group now are comfortable with each other and they know enough about the group and how it functions to be comfortable with a virtual platform. Another challenge is the inevitable fact that we'll be constantly gaining and losing members. It's something that we don't like to discuss, but we have lost at least 3 caregivers since the start of the journey because their loved ones have passed away. And we've also gained at least 3 caregivers because their family has been admitted to long-term care. So it's an ever-changing group, which leads to our biggest challenge, which is being able to meet the needs of each individual. Like I said, every person is at a different stage of their caregiving journey. Some families are new to caregiving and long-term care, and they want to know more about Kipling Acres, about our policies, about our procedures. They want to meet the staff. They want to have access to additional supports. Then we have those who might have been at Kipling for a couple of years already. They know the policies, they know the staff, and they've been supporting their loved one here for a long time, and they're tired and they're burnt out. They want resources for themselves. Then we have those who are at the end of their caregiver journey. Their loved one is at the end of life and they're looking for information on our end of life processes, how they can support their loved one in the dying process, how they can manage the grief themselves. With this being a known challenge, we try and rotate topics to meet each demographic, and we advertise topics ahead of time so that families can attend sessions that speak to them specifically. We do regular check-ins with our families. We are constantly asking for feedback. We're always meeting up with our families in the hallways or in our offices to get as much feedback so we can adapt the group as needed. And we acknowledge all of the feedback and emotions, and we try and recognize it and put it all into place. Amazingly, too, our caregivers are super supportive and understanding of everyone's journey and everyone's feelings. And although they may disagree or have different ideas amongst each other, they are awesome and they support each other by acknowledging all feelings. I'll now turn it back over to Bambo to discuss our evaluation process.
Thanks, Adriana. So probably around closer to like mid-September, we thought it was time for us to start thinking about evaluation. Because as Adriana had stated, we're losing members and gaining members, and we really wanted feedback from our members. So we decided to create a short survey. That's a copy of the survey that you have on the screen right there. It was distributed in October, and in October, there was Thanksgiving, there was Halloween. So our return rate wasn't what we really wanted, but we still wanted to at least start collecting feedback. We're hoping that the feedback will help to guide the 2024 planning. And some of the feedback that we received so far includes they really like the venue that we're currently using. They like the communication in terms of promoting the topics. They like the facilitators and speaker who have presented so far. They do want to continue with monthly meetings. Some of them prefer daytime, some evenings, but the ones who responded said they prefer the daytime sessions. And they would like to see more topics or sessions covering dementia and end of life. Because the return rate was a bit disappointing for us, we've been strategizing in terms of how to move forward. So initially, we did offer in-person opportunity to complete the survey during the session in October. We also sent the survey out through email. And we know that just the festivities going on in October could have been a contributing factor. And the fact that also we do lose caregivers due to resident being discharged from passing away. Some of our observations is that we do have caregivers joining during transition. And like Adriana said earlier, it's different for individuals. For some, it's maybe when they're just transitioning into the home, so they need that sort of caregiver support forum. Some, it's when there's a significant change in the resident health status and they just need that support as well. And for some, it's when the residents are progressing through end of life. So because of this, for the participants that are joining when their loved one is progressing through end of life, we lose them. So then we gain new ones. So we do notice that we do have a sort of revolving door in terms of members. We've also noticed that it creates an intimate forum to discuss some of the sensitive and emotional topics. When we're talking about level of intervention, in my years in long-term care, I know sometimes, we have to review levels of intervention over and over and over with families. And at the time, it makes sense. And then they go away, they're like, well, you know what? Can you review that with me again? So it's a really, really nice forum for them to be able to talk about what it actually means. And then, of course, talk about like end of life or even dementia, like progression to through the disease process. The other piece that we've noticed is trying to really reinforce what it is to be caring for the caregivers, because our caregivers they're very used to being the caregiver. They're caring for their loved one. But then in this forum, it's like, okay, it's now we want to turn the wheels around and, we want to actually care for you as the caregiver. So sometimes moderating those topics around caring for the caregiver sometimes can be challenging. Next slide. So in terms of moving forward, we've brainstormed and we have a plan in place, at least for the next quarter or thereabout. In September, there's lots going on in the home as well as in the caregivers' individual lives. So we've decided that we're going to take a break in December. In January, we're going to start up again as everyone winds down from the festivities and the holiday visits. In January, it's usually when everybody sort of comes back and everything starts over. And our plan right now is to try a virtual session. So we're yet to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how members feel and the turnout that we get for the virtual session. Also, we're planning on alternating daytime and evening programs, just like we've been doing, because as you can see from the initial needs assessment, we almost have a 50-50% split amongst folks who prefer daytime and the ones who will prefer the evening programs. We're also looking at inviting more disciplines from within our home to talk about their role and what they do. So for sure, the nursing team, we're going to be inviting them. A physiotherapy program as well to come. Behavioral management to talk about behaviors in the home, and additional community resources, just as we've done already. So in terms of other family engagement initiatives that we have in our home is listed on the slide there. Family Council, we have a very vibrant family council in our home that we're very proud of. We've also moved towards the family gathering rooms in our home, because it came through during the pandemic when families couldn't really go up to the residence room. It became very challenging to gather in the homes. So we've piggyback on that experience. And now we create various spaces within our homes for families to meet and gather. So sometimes we'll have birthday parties, anniversaries, and so on and so forth. We also have a family email. It's families@toronto.ca. That's been very helpful for families, especially when they're new to the home. It's very easy to remember for them, and they can always email us to ask us questions, or if they have any concerns they would like to bring forward. Of course, we have the satisfaction survey that we also administer annually, which is a requirement of the Fixing Long-Term Care Act. So that's another way that we engage families. We do have a family representation on our home committees. For example, our quality committee. We do have a very active member on that committee who attends regularly, and they also take a summary of the meeting back to Family Council, which has been very, very helpful and a good linkage from the site quality back to Family Council. Also, we have various quality improvement projects going on in the home. And what we've tried to do is also to engage families in terms of implementing some of these projects. And what we're finding is that family perspective on an issue is very informative. Sometimes we're looking at things from an operational level, even sometimes from what we think is a resident's perspective, but when we get that family lens, it's usually very powerful. Okay, so this picture says it all. This is how engaged we are within our home, that we actually brought in the wedding into Kipling Acres. We really, truly, strongly believe that resident engagement equals resident-centered care. So engaging families is very critical in really providing resident-centered care. Gaining input, insight, and ideas from all care providers, not just only at the home, but from the caregivers as well, creates the best possible solution for resident care. At the end of the day, that is what joins us all together as a unit, is the resident. We're all here for the resident, so we need to foster a positive and engaged care team, and that's our goal at Kipling Acres. So this picture here is a granddaughter who brought the wedding to Kipling Acres. And of course, as you can see, they were masked. That was when the universal masking was still in place. But we were so grateful that we were able to be part of this and to allow our resident to be part of this very important ceremony. Next slide. Okay, so we're now open for questions and comments about our presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello, and thank you both for such a wonderful session. So we do have a few questions to ask you. The first being the connection between this program and the Family Council. So have you found that having this family caregiver program has influenced the council in the sense that it's grown because there's an opportunity to kind of network and get to know other people, which might lead to a chance to join the council, or is there no connection between the program and council size?
I can start, and Adriana, can add to it. So yes, there's been an influence from both sides, to be honest. So I'm going to start from the Caregiver Support Group. So from the Caregiver Support Group, I've attended about 2 of the sessions. One of the sessions that I attended, we actually referred one of the caregivers to Family Council. And the reason being that there was a question that was brought forward at the Caregiver Support Group. Like I mentioned earlier, we're finding that it's really, really challenging sometimes for the caregivers to be cared for. So of course, there was a questions around more like an advocacy question. So we're like, oh, that's a really, really good point. That forum will be Family Council in terms of, bringing that forward. They're here. It's about looking after you as a caregiver. So we've done that. And of course, from the Family Council perspective, they were a big part of the development of it, so they're aware of it. And yes, we do talk about it there when it comes up, and I'm sure they've referred each other to also attend.
So I was going to ask a question similar to what Michelle's asked. So excellent work, Bambo and Adriana. She's wondered if you're considering opening up the caregiver support groups to caregivers from all City of Toronto homes to help boost engagement, or if you've looked to work with other City of Toronto homes for them to start a similar initiative in their own homes.
That's an excellent question. Right now, it's a very new program, and we're still evaluating the program even within our home. So we honestly have not explored the expansion to other homes, but for sure, it's something that in the future, we will explore to see if other homes are open to it.
What recommendations do you have for families that want to encourage equity, diversity, and inclusion, or EDI initiatives in their home, but don't know where to start?
That's a really good question. There is a resource that we use for EDI work, the CLRI. They're a really, really good resource for EDI because I've attended some of their session, and actually we did present there too a couple of months ago or so. So that's a real good resource. I can send you the information after if you would like me to.
Yes, absolutely. That would be great. And so speaking of tools, what survey tool did you use to help gather the information? So you mentioned evaluation. Was it something that existed already? Was it something that you developed yourselves? Did you print them out, or did you use something that exists already?
No, it was a tool that we developed on our own because we knew exactly what we wanted to gather, and we put it together as a team.
Great. Yeah. So it's a little bit more personalized to your home and the questions that might change. If you're going to roll it out differently, or if you did it online, is there any specific tool that you might look into using or recommend using over others, like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, based on the feedback you've gotten from families?
We do have our own internal tool that we use at the City of Toronto, and it's called Market Check.
Check market.
Check Market, the other way around. Check Market, yes, that's our own internal tool that we use. So if we were to do this online, that's how we would have administered it.
Perfect. Yeah. And it depends. I know the City of Toronto has its own specific, unique requirements for technology compared to certain other organizations. So it doesn't surprise me you have your own survey tool because you've got 10 homes that there are connected. So there's a big network that requires similar infrastructure. I'm guessing if it's possible, can you try to kind of clarify the difference and division in the work between what your family council at Kipling Acres does and what the family support group does at Kipling Acres?
Excellent question. So our family council is a mandated council by the Fixing Long-Term Care Act for opportunities for families to advocate and provide input into the operation of the home. The Caregiver Support Group is a program that we've developed internally to support caregivers in our home. I know Family Council also, in their work, do attempt to support families through advocacy. Absolutely, that's also supporting caregivers. But in this forum, it's more personalized, it's more individualized. I know through our own family council, because I attend quite often, I'm invited to provide updates. We do try to get away from individual cases or even mentioning residents' name. So we keep it at a high level, policy level type discussion. In this forum here, we're also not necessarily identifying residents or mentioning their names, but it's a more intimate type forum for families to be able to have discussions together as a caregiver. So it's more, the goal is to support the caregivers at the Caregiver Support Group sessions. At the Family Council, it's more to advocate on behalf of families and residents. So that's how I would describe the difference.
Thank you. And this is our final question. And to wrap up such a great session, it's great to see that Kipling Acres has collaborated, engaged with families. What was the first step to fostering a positive relationship and inviting feedback on the program that you've created? Because you said it's evolved as you've learned what families need. So what was the first step to fostering that positive relationship and then working and inviting that feedback?
I think the first step is we've always had a collaborative approach with our families in terms of gaining their trust, engaging them. Like we said earlier, this all started from an idea brought forward by Family Council because it was during the pandemic. People needed that forum to be able to get support. So I would say we started at Family Council, really, that's where it started. And saying that, you know what, I think we need a separate forum for families to be able to talk and decide on what they want to talk about. Like Family Council is so structured that, it might not necessarily lend, hand to maybe topics that certain people want to talk about. But because the Caregiver Support Group is smaller, that helps to foster that.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to pass it over to Sam so she can wrap up the session. But thank you so much for all the amazing answers to the questions and for the great questions.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for facilitating the Q&A, and to Bambo and Adriana for this great session. It's really highlighted how when you work with your family council, you can really create something that is meaningful for the caregivers in the home, and that there is room for family council alongside other family supports within a long-term care home. Really, what I'm taking away from this is that work with your family council. It's possible to set up something like this and to create something that really speaks to the caregiver experience and meets their needs. So well done, and thanks so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sam, for inviting us.
It's been a pleasure. All right, folks, thanks for participating in this great session. I hope you have some ideas to take back to your long-term care home or your council for ways you can support caregivers in your home. It is now just after 2:30. We're going to take a networking / wellness break. So for the networking, feel free to reach out to folks via the People tab, or to just send a note to someone, hang out in the lobby chat, talk about what you've heard so far today. And we'll be back at 3 p.m. And at that time, Kathleen is going to lead an interactive session on family council powers. So working through some scenarios and some commonly asked questions. So we'll be back at 3 p.m. Take a stretch, grab a coffee, and chat amongst yourselves, and we'll see you soon.